I stood outside Mr. Howard's office, my fingers gripping the door handle, the weight of what I was about to do pressing down on me. The familiar sound of his voice cut through the stillness, calm but with a hint of concern. "Olivia, are you sure about this?" Mr. Howard's question echoed in the silence. I exhaled slowly, pushing past the doubt, feeling my heart race in my chest. "I've thought it through," I said, my voice steady. "This is what I need," he sighed, adjusting his glasses. "Once you sign, there's no turning back," he warned, placing the contract in front of me. "The International Medical Relief Team will pick you up in a month." I reached out without hesitation, signing my name. The ink felt permanent, like a line in the sand that marked my decision. No more second guessing. No more turning back. I walked out of his office, the weight of the document in my hands a reminder of the life I was leaving behind. As I stepped outside, I looked down at my slightly rounded belly, my fingers lightly brushing the small bump. I was 2 months pregnant, but this time, I wasn't going to keep the child. The past life I'd lived had stolen too much from me. The betrayal had been so complete, so painful. In my previous life, I'd married Ethan when I was 20. He'd been stationed far away, and I'd stayed behind, taking care of his parents, caring for our daughter, putting my own dreams on hold. And then, it happened. He came home with Grace, a woman he claimed had saved his life. "This is Grace," he said, his voice warm, full of gratitude. "She saved me. She's a benefactor to our entire family, Olivia. You need to treat her well." It felt like my world shattered in that moment. Grace was beautiful, gentle, capable, everything. I was not. Ethan's family adored her, and they soon began to compare her to me. The whispers began small, almost unnoticed at first, but they cut deep. "If only Grace were the one Ethan had married," they said. And even our daughter started to idolize Grace. I could hear her once, screaming at me in frustration. "What era are we in? You and Dad shouldn't even be together. If only Aunt Grace were my mom." The words still haunted me. The knife of betrayal cut deeper with every passing day, but I swallowed the pain. I had to. I wasn't allowed to break. Then one evening, Grace and I were kidnapped by one of Ethan's enemies. When Ethan came to rescue us, the kidnapper gave him an impossible choice. He could save only one of us. The moment that gunshot rang out, I knew what would happen. I felt my heart stop, my body fall to the ground, but the last thing I saw before darkness took me was Ethan throwing himself over Grace, shielding her without hesitation. It was the ultimate betrayal. Even in my last moments, he chose her. The pain, the anguish, the humiliation of that moment haunted me as I was reborn into this new life. But this time, I wouldn't be the same woman. I wouldn't be the wife who silently stood by as she was replaced. I wouldn't be the one who kept swallowing the hurt. I would fight. I would take control. I went to the hospital, determined to change my fate. When I told the doctor that I wanted an abortion, he tried to convince me otherwise, but I was resolute. "I'm sure," I told him, the words coming easily now, firm and unwavering. There was no place for this child in my life, no place for the Carter family in my future. 2 days later, I returned home. Ethan's mother immediately questioned me. "Where have you been?" she asked, her tone sharp, disapproving. I didn't flinch. "I was interning at the hospital," I said quietly. She glared at me. "You're married now. You shouldn't be running off to the hospital all the time. You should be at home, looking after us. What use is all that studying? You'll never be a real doctor." A woman's value is in being unaccomplished. Her words stung, but I kept my expression neutral, trying not to show how much it hurt. She had always treated Grace with such kindness, never once questioning her choices. But she didn't know me anymore. She didn't know how far I had come or how much I had changed. Later that evening, Ethan did exactly what I expected. He brought Grace home. His familiar words, "This is Grace. She saved my life. Treat her well," felt like salt in the wound. But this time, I wasn't going to sit there and accept it. I went to the hospital, not waiting around for them to accept me, not staying in that house where I was invisible. When I returned, it was New Year's Eve. The house was tense, but no one noticed me. Ethan's mother scowled, her face twisted with annoyance as she set the table. "You're finally back," she muttered. I sat down without a word, picking up my chopsticks, but I could feel their eyes on me. Grace was already the golden child. She was everything they wanted, everything I could never be. Ethan smiled, trying to break the ice. Grace doesn't know anyone here yet. She'll be staying with us for now. Treat her well, he said. I looked at him, unable to feel anything but bitterness. How could he say that to me? The woman who had spent years trying to make a home for his family, always doing everything, always giving up everything for him. Grace smiled at Ethan, looking up at him with admiration. I'll take care of everyone now, she said softly. You don't need to worry. The words felt like poison. She had already taken my place, taken my role, and I let it go. Let the silence fill the space. I no longer had the strength to fight for something that was never really mine. Ethan noticed my silence and, in his usual way, tried to make up for it by offering me a shrimp he'd cooked himself. Olivia, try it. You've hardly been home during the new year, but thank you for looking after the house and my parents this year. I stared at the shrimp, my heart hardening. I'm allergic to shrimp, I said coldly. Did you not know that? He froze, but the room was already sinking back into its oppressive atmosphere. His mother, ever the enabler, dismissed it casually. Don't make a scene. Back in the day, people didn't even have enough food. Don't ruin everyone's mood. But it was too late. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I stood up. No, this isn't how it works. If you knowingly force someone with a food allergy to eat something, and it causes anaphylaxis, that's called attempted murder. Silence. The air was thick with tension as Ethan's father slammed his hand on the table. Apologize to your mother, he demanded. My mother? I said, the venom in my voice unmistakable. I don't have a mother. She died a long time ago. And, if I'm not mistaken, it was because of you. The room went still. Ethan's father froze, his face turning pale. I could feel the weight of his guilt pressing down on him. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He didn't have the strength to deny what I had just said. I turned my back to them, my fingers tightening around my phone. I was done with pretending, done with living for their approval, done with the constant need to prove my worth to a family that had never truly seen me, never truly cared about me. As I walked toward the door, Ethan reached out and grabbed my wrist. His touch sent a jolt of anger through my body. Olivia, stop. Don't do this, please. I shook him off, the coldness in my voice surprising even me. No, Ethan, it's over. I'm done with you, done with your family. I can't keep living like this. His face twisted, his expression caught between confusion and desperation. Olivia, don't say that. We can work this out. We'll fix everything. I'll change. But I didn't believe him anymore. There was nothing left to fix. The man I had married, the man I had trusted with everything, had chosen Grace. He had chosen her over me time and time again. Don't flatter yourself, I said, my words cold and final. I'm not doing this for you, Ethan. I'm doing this for me. He stepped back, a pained expression crossing his face. His mother, sensing the tension, joined in. You don't mean that, Olivia. You're just angry. You'll regret this. But I didn't care. It was too late for regrets, too late for apologies. Ethan had never loved me the way I needed to be loved. He had never seen me for who I truly was. He had taken me for granted, and now I was done. I walked out of the house, my suitcase in hand. The cool night air hit my face, but I didn't care. I felt like I was breathing for the first time in years. I had taken back control of my life, and nothing would stop me now. The next few days passed in a blur. I stayed in a hotel, trying to collect my thoughts, trying to figure out what I was going to do next. The world felt bigger now, as if a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. But even with that relief, I knew there was still a part of me that was broken. That part of me that had given so much to Ethan, to his family, to the life I thought I was meant to live. I couldn't change the past, but I could change my future. Mr. Howard's call came the next day. Olivia, he said, his voice serious but warm. I've submitted your name. In 2 weeks, you'll be joining the medical relief team in Moritz. It's winter there, so make sure you prepare accordingly. I barely had time to process what he said. The urgency in his voice left no room for doubt. This was my chance. This was my escape. It wasn't just about the mission. It was about finding myself, rediscovering the woman I had forgotten in the years of sacrifice and neglect. I spent the next few days preparing. I bought clothes for the cold weather, packed my bags, and mentally prepared for the journey ahead. As I stood in front of the mirror one last time before leaving, I saw the woman who had been hidden for so long. I didn't recognize her at first. She was stronger, more confident, more resolved than the woman who had walked into the Carter household years ago. And as much as it hurt to leave everything behind, I knew it was the right thing to do. For me, on the day I was supposed to leave, I was at the airport, my flight booked. But before I could board the plane, I got a call from Ethan. His voice was frantic, desperate. "Olivia, where are you? I need to talk to you." I hesitated, the anger rising again. How could he still want to talk to me? After everything, after all the lies, the betrayals, he thought he could just pick up the phone and make it all right. I didn't pick up. Then as I was about to board, I felt someone grab my arm. I turned quickly, and there he was, Ethan. His eyes were wide with panic, and for the first time in a long while, I saw the guilt in his expression. "Olivia," he said, his voice breaking, "I've been trying to find you. I've been calling you, but you blocked me. I couldn't reach you. I thought I lost you for good." I pulled my arm away, the coldness in my eyes matching the ice that had settled in my heart. "You don't get to do this," I said, my voice low but firm. "You don't get to walk into my life and act like everything is fine after everything you've done." His face twisted in pain, but I couldn't find it in myself to care anymore. "I thought you were done with me," he said, his voice almost pleading. "I thought you hated me." "I don't hate you, Ethan," I said softly, my voice surprisingly calm. "I just don't care anymore." His eyes filled with confusion, then hurt. "Olivia, please, I made a mistake. I see it now. I regret everything. Please, don't go." But I didn't stay. I couldn't stay. "Goodbye, Ethan," I said, turning and walking away without looking back. As I boarded the plane and took my seat, the tears that had been threatening to fall for so long finally started to slip down my cheeks. But this time, they weren't tears of sadness or regret. They were tears of release. I was free. The plane took off, and I knew that this was just the beginning of my new life. A life that would no longer be defined by Ethan or the Carter family. A life that would be mine and mine alone. I sat in the airport lounge, the hum of conversations and distant announcements swirling around me, but my mind was elsewhere. I was about to board a flight to the unknown, to leave behind everything I'd ever known. The past few days had been a blur, packing, saying goodbye to the life I had lived, trying to make sense of what was happening. My heart felt like it had been broken into 1,000 pieces, but there was something else too: relief. The weight that had pressed down on me for so long was gone. For the first time, I felt free, but it wasn't easy to shake off the ghosts that lingered in the back of my mind. As I walked down the terminal toward my gate, I couldn't help but think of Ethan, the way he'd begged me to come back, the way his voice had cracked with desperation when he found me. I had no doubt he was regretting everything, but I couldn't let that pull me back in. The truth was, I had waited too long for him to change, and now I was the one who needed to change. I stepped onto the plane, finding my seat and glancing out the window as the engines roared to life. The plane slowly taxied down the runway, and for a brief moment, I felt like I was leaving more than just a place. I was leaving the version of myself that had put up with the endless disappointment. The old me, the one who had begged for affection, who had kept quiet, who had tried to be what everyone else needed her to be. That woman was gone. As the plane soared into the sky, I looked down at the city below, shrinking away, and realized that I was never coming back. I didn't know what lay ahead, whether it would be better or worse, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to be the same person who had silently endured years of neglect, betrayal, and pain. I would be someone new, someone stronger. The next few days in Moritz were a blur of activity. The relief team worked tirelessly, offering medical help to the wounded and sick. The people we helped were so grateful, their eyes filled with hope. But it was hard to ignore the darkness that still clung to me. The memories of my old life would never truly disappear. They had shaped who I was, for better or worse. But I was here now, in this foreign place, and I had to focus on the work. The team was amazing, kind, passionate, and driven. They welcomed me with open arms, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was part of something meaningful. But even with that sense of purpose, there were moments when my thoughts drifted back to Ethan and Grace. The lies, the pain, the betrayal, it all seemed so fresh, as if I had never truly left it behind. One evening, after a long day of treating patients, I found myself alone in my room, staring at the small photo of my daughter that I kept on my bedside table. Her face, her sweet smile, it all seemed so distant. I couldn't shake the guilt that had haunted me since I left. I wasn't there for her. I wasn't there to protect her from the toxicity of the Carter family. I had run, and in doing so, I had left her behind. I knew I couldn't fix everything at once, but I vowed to make it right. I would find a way to reconnect with her, to make her understand that I wasn't abandoning her. I had to be strong for both of us. The days turned into weeks, and the weight of my old life began to fade. The people here, the patients I helped, they became my focus. I found solace in my work, in the lives I saved. It was like therapy, a way to heal the scars that still ran deep inside me. But then, one day, I received a message from Mr. Howard. Olivia, I've submitted your name for a special program. It's a 4-year medical study in Germany, one of the most advanced programs in the world. Would you be willing to go? The offer was incredible, but it was also a heavy decision. 4 years away from everything, away from the relief work I had grown to love. But I knew I had to take this opportunity. It was a chance to become the doctor I had always dreamed of being. It was a chance to finally prove to myself that I could be something more than just Ethan's wife, just the woman who had been left behind. I accepted the offer. I packed my bags once more, this time with a sense of excitement. The future, no matter how uncertain, was mine to shape. When I arrived in Germany, I was overwhelmed. The medical system here was light years ahead of anything I had seen. The program was rigorous, demanding, but it was exactly what I needed. It was everything I had ever wanted, and I threw myself into it completely. But even as I immersed myself in my studies, the ghosts of my past still haunted me. I heard about Ethan and Grace. I knew they were still together, their relationship playing out in the media. She was by his side, supporting him as he dealt with the fallout from his involvement with the traitor. There was a part of me that felt vindicated, that felt like justice had been served. But there was also something else, something I couldn't ignore. A tiny, fleeting part of me that wanted to know if he had changed, if he had ever truly cared for me. But that was not my life anymore. It was hard though. There were moments when I wanted to reach out to him, to hear his voice, to hear him apologize. But I didn't. I couldn't let myself go down that path again. I had learned the hard way that nothing good would come from it. I had to move on. The more time passed, the clearer my purpose became. The program in Germany was everything I had hoped for. It tested me, challenged me, and ultimately shaped me into the doctor I had always aspired to be. But more than that, it helped me heal. It helped me see that I was worth something more than the life I had left behind. 3 years later, I stood in front of my classmates as I received my degree. The proudest moment of my life wasn't the diploma in my hands, but the woman I had become. I had fought for this. I had fought for myself. I had rebuilt my life, piece by piece, and now it was time to move forward. Years had passed since I left Ethan and the Carter family behind. Years of hard work, growth, and healing. The woman who stood at the podium now, receiving her medical degree, wasn't the same woman who had once been married to Ethan. She wasn't the woman who had cried herself to sleep every night, wondering why she wasn't enough. The woman who stood here now was someone strong, someone independent, someone who had earned everything through her own sweat and determination. The applause from the crowd blurred in my ears, but I didn't care about the recognition. It wasn't the degree I cared about. It was what it symbolized. It was everything I had fought for. I had rebuilt my life from the ruins of my past, and I had done it on my own terms. As I stood there, my thoughts momentarily drifted to Ethan. I hadn't thought about him as much over the years. I had created a new life, a fulfilling one, and that part of my past had slowly faded into the background. But today, the memories came rushing back, uninvited. I remembered the man I once loved, the man who had betrayed me so completely. I wondered where he was now, what he was doing. The last time I had heard about him, he was still in trouble, his career in ruins, his reputation shattered. Grace had stood by him, but I knew better than anyone that she wasn't really the woman she appeared to be. She had only used him, used his gratitude, and manipulated him for her own gain. But that was no longer my problem. They had their consequences to face. I had moved on. I had a future now. Later that evening, after the graduation ceremony, I sat alone in my small apartment, gazing out at the view of the city. The lights twinkled in the distance, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. I had come so far, farther than I had ever imagined. But even as I felt that pride, there was still something that tugged at me, a lingering ache in my chest. What About my daughter? I had left her behind when I left Ethan. I had thought that if I stayed, the pain of living in that house, the suffocating atmosphere, would eventually swallow me whole. But in doing so, I had left behind the one thing that truly mattered: my child. I hadn't been there for her when she needed me most. I knew I had to make it right. The thought of her growing up with that family, without me, without the support she deserved, filled me with guilt. I couldn't keep running away from the consequences of my decisions. I had to fix this. I didn't know how I would do it, or what the path ahead would look like, but I was determined. I would find a way back to her, to make her see that I hadn't abandoned her, that I wasn't the woman I had been when I left. A few months later, after much back and forth, I finally worked up the courage to reach out to her. She was 14 now, growing up fast, becoming a young woman in her own right. I sent her a letter first, explaining my decision to leave, explaining why I had to leave. I didn't expect her to forgive me right away, but I needed her to know the truth. I needed her to understand that I had done what I thought was best for both of us, even if it meant stepping away from everything I had known. It wasn't an easy letter to write. My hands trembled as I put pen to paper, my heart aching with every word. But I did it. I sent it. The wait felt like an eternity. I didn't know if she would even read it, let alone respond. But I had to hope. I had to believe that in time she would understand. Then one day, I received an email. It was from her. "Mom," it began, and my heart stopped for a moment. I hadn't heard that word in years. "I don't really understand everything that happened, but I read your letter, and I think I get it now. I'm angry, but I'm not as angry as I was before. I think I'm just confused." Her words broke something inside me. I had no right to expect forgiveness, but somehow I had hoped for it. My daughter had every right to be angry, to feel betrayed. I had to live with that, but she was giving me a chance to rebuild what I had lost. I responded quickly, pouring my heart into my reply. I told her how much I loved her, how much I missed her. I promised her that I would do whatever it took to make it right. That email was the first step in healing the deep rift between us. Over the next few months, we began talking more, sharing our thoughts and feelings. Slowly but surely, we started to rebuild our relationship. It wasn't perfect, and I knew there was still so much to work through, but at least we were talking again. At least we had a chance. Meanwhile, life continued to move forward. I had received an offer to work in one of the best hospitals in Germany, where I could continue to develop my skills and grow as a doctor. It was an opportunity I had never imagined in my wildest dreams. I was ready to take it, but I knew that even as I was building my career, I couldn't neglect the most important relationship of all, the one with my daughter. In the midst of all of this, I received another call from Mr. Howard. His voice, always calm and measured, carried news I wasn't expecting. "Olivia," he said, "I've been hearing rumors. I wanted to tell you, Ethan came to see me not long after you left. He was devastated. He wanted to know where you went. He even caused a scene in my office." I was silent for a long moment. The thought of Ethan, broken and regretful, didn't bring me the satisfaction I had expected. Mr. Howard continued, "It was Grace who dragged him out of here in the end. At first, I thought he might truly be heartbroken over you. But then, a few months later, I heard something shocking." I leaned forward, my pulse quickening. "What is it?" "Grace," he said softly, "she was arrested. It turns out she was a traitor. She had been using Ethan, manipulating him for years. The entire Carter family was duped." The news hit me like a punch. Grace had been playing her own game the entire time. I couldn't help but feel a strange sense of relief. In the end, the truth had come out, and Ethan, for all his faults, had been deceived by the one person he had trusted the most. But none of this mattered now. It was over. Ethan and Grace had their consequences to face. And as for me, I had moved on. I had built a new life, one that I was proud of. I hung up the phone, a small smile tugging at my lips. For the first time in years, I didn't feel the weight of the past holding me down. I had chosen my own path, and it had led me to a future full of possibilities. It had been a few years since I first left everything behind. Since I walked away from Ethan, from the Carter family, from the life I thought I was meant to live. But the truth was, I had created something much better. A life of my own, a career I was proud of, and a sense of self I hadn't known was possible. Germany had become my home. The medical community there was advanced, and every day I learned something new. It was grueling work, long hours, but it was the work I had always dreamed of. It felt like a second chance, and I was determined to make the most of it. But the past, like it always does, had a way of creeping back into my life. One evening, after finishing a particularly difficult surgery, I received a call from Mr. Howard. His voice was unusually somber. "Olivia," he began, "I have some news that might interest you. Ethan and Grace have both been arrested." The words hit me like a cold gust of wind. I had heard the rumors before, but to hear them confirmed was another thing entirely. My heart tightened in my chest. "What happened?" I asked, my voice more even than I felt. "Grace," he said, taking a deep breath, "was arrested for espionage. It turns out she had been working for the enemy for years, manipulating Ethan, manipulating the whole Carter family. She had a plan, and she executed it flawlessly. Ethan, of course, was devastated when he found out the truth. But now, his career is over. His family is in ruin." I felt numb. For all the years I had spent angry at Ethan, part of me thought he deserved something more, a clearer resolution, a sense of closure. But what he got instead was this: betrayal by the very person he had trusted the most. It was like life had come full circle. "Do you want to hear the rest of it?" Mr. Howard asked gently. I didn't answer right away. What was left to hear? Was it even important? I had let go of all of them. The Carter family, Ethan, Grace, they didn't matter anymore. But part of me couldn't help but listen. "It's strange," Mr. Howard continued. "I never thought Ethan would fall for something like this. He was always so protective of you, Olivia. And then Grace came into the picture, and he let her in. He let her twist everything. He didn't see it until it was too late." I sat there, the weight of his words settling over me. Ethan had always been a man of contradictions. He had never seen me. He had never understood me. And now, his life was shattered, a direct result of his choices. "Olivia," Mr. Howard said quietly, "I know you've moved on, but I wanted you to know. I think you deserve to know the truth. Grace used him, and now she's going down for it." The silence between us stretched out. "Thank you," I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. "I appreciate you telling me. Take care of yourself," he added before the call ended. I sat there for a long time, staring out the window of my small apartment in Germany. It was quiet here, calm, but there was still a part of me that felt unsettled, like I was waiting for something. The past had a way of shadowing you, even when you thought you had left it behind. But I wasn't that woman anymore. I had a new life, a new purpose. And I couldn't let Ethan or Grace or the ghosts of my past hold me back. They had their own consequences to face, and I had mine. The next day, I received an unexpected message, a letter from my daughter. It had been a few years since I last heard from her, since I left her behind in that toxic house. But this letter, it was different. It was longer, filled with emotion, filled with everything I had longed to hear from her. "Mom," she wrote, "I'm not sure what to say. I've been thinking a lot about you and everything that happened. I want to understand. I want to know why you left. I'm angry still, but I don't think I'm angry at you anymore." My heart soared as I read those words. I had never imagined that we could get to this point, but here we were. I had done the impossible. I had reached her. The letter went on. "I miss you. I don't know where things go from here, but I want you to know that I'm trying. I'm trying to understand why you did what you did. And I want to start over. Please, Mom, let's start over." I felt a lump in my throat as I set the letter down. For all the pain I had caused her, for all the mistakes I had made, she was offering me a chance to rebuild what had been broken. I immediately began drafting a response, pouring all my feelings into the letter. I told her how much I loved her, how sorry I was for the things I had done, and how desperately I wanted to be a part of her life again. I promised her I would do whatever it took to earn her trust. It was the first step in healing, in rebuilding what I had lost. Months passed. I continued my work in Germany, and every day I felt stronger, more fulfilled. But there was a part of me that was still healing, still moving through the motions of the past. As much as I had created a new life, as much as I had achieved professionally, my heart still ached for the daughter I had left behind. Then, one fateful afternoon, I received a call from my daughter. "Mom," she said, her voice shaky, "I'm coming to see you." The moment those words left her lips, everything seemed to stop. My heart skipped a beat. She was coming. After all these years, she was coming to see me. Tears blurred my vision as I sat there, gripping the phone tightly. This was it, the moment I had been waiting for. The past, the hurt, the regret, it didn't matter anymore. All that mattered now was the future. The future I would build with my daughter, with the woman I had become. The days that followed felt like a dream, a strange mixture of excitement and anxiety. I could hardly focus on anything else. The thought of seeing my daughter again, after all this time, was both terrifying and exhilarating. How would she look? How would she act? Had she changed as much as I had? Would she understand why I had left? Or would she still carry the anger I had seen in her eyes years ago? I couldn't focus on my work, not with the clock ticking down. The letter I had sent her had been answered with an invitation. She was coming to Germany. She wanted to see me, to talk, to try to understand. My heart fluttered at the thought, but the fear was still there, clawing at the back of my mind. What if I couldn't fix it? What if she couldn't forgive me? What if my mistakes were too much to overcome? But I pushed those thoughts aside. I couldn't control everything. I couldn't go back in time and undo the hurt, but I could be there now. I could show her the woman I had become, the mother who had finally found her own strength. The day she arrived, I was a bundle of nerves. I stood at the train station, my eyes scanning the crowd, searching for a glimpse of her. And then I saw her. She was older now, no longer the little girl I remembered, but a young woman, full of uncertainty, just like me. Her eyes met mine, and for a moment, time stood still. I could see the pain in them, the same pain I had caused, the same sadness I had carried for so long. And yet, there was something else there to hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild. She hesitated, her steps slow as she approached. When she reached me, she stopped, standing a few feet away, unsure of what to do. And for the first time in years, I felt small, vulnerable. "Hi, Mom," she said, her voice soft and tentative. My heart clenched. I had no words at first. All I could do was open my arms. She stood there for a moment, her body stiff, but then, as if she couldn't hold it back anymore, she stepped forward, and we embraced. The tears came then, unbidden and uncontrollable. We stood there in the middle of the train station, two broken pieces of a past we couldn't undo, but now, with a chance to rebuild. She didn't say anything. Neither of us did. There was nothing to say. Not yet. After a long moment, she pulled away slightly, looking up at me. Her eyes were red, and I saw the flicker of the same anger I had seen years ago, but it was mixed with something else now. "I don't know how to do this, Mom," she whispered. "I don't know how to forgive you." I swallowed hard, my throat tight with emotion. I hadn't expected forgiveness. I knew it would take time. I had to be patient. I had to earn back her trust, step by step. "I don't expect you to forgive me right away," I said, my voice shaky but steady. "I just want you to know that I'm here now. I'm not going anywhere. I'll do whatever it takes to make things right." She nodded slowly, still processing, and I knew that this moment, this fragile beginning, was just the first step. There would be difficult conversations, moments of pain, moments of healing, but we would take them together. We spent the next few days getting reacquainted, tentatively at first, but the walls that had once seemed so impenetrable slowly began to crumble. We walked around the city, talking about everything and nothing. She told me about her life, about the years I had missed, and I shared what I had been through, my struggles, my growth, my mistakes. There were still awkward silences, but we began to laugh again, and that laughter, no matter how hesitant, felt like the first real sign that we were healing, that we had a chance. I took her to the hospital where I worked, showing her the life I had built for myself here. She was quiet at first, observing, but when I showed her the medical team I had come to know as family, she seemed to warm up. The kindness of my colleagues, their dedication, it was something she could see, something real. "Mom," she said later that evening, as we sat on the balcony of my apartment, watching the city below, "I think I understand now why you left." I didn't speak right away, not knowing what to say. But then she continued, "I don't know if I'll ever fully understand, but I know you didn't leave because you didn't love me. I think you left because you had to. You were trying to find yourself, to be more than just Ethan's wife." Her voice trailed off, and I saw the understanding in her eyes. I nodded, fighting back the tears that threatened to fall again. I was lost, baby. I was so lost in trying to be what everyone else wanted me to be that I forgot who I was. I didn't know who I was anymore, and I had to leave in order to find that. Her eyes softened as she took my hand. I don't know if I'll ever fully forgive you, but I want to try, Mom. I really do. A lump formed in my throat as I squeezed her hand. I hadn't expected forgiveness, and I didn't need it right away. All I needed was the chance. A chance to be a mother to her again, a chance to show her how much I loved her, and that was enough. In the days that followed, we continued to rebuild, one small step at a time. The past still lingered, but it no longer had the power to control us. We had each other now, and that was enough to begin the healing. The weeks passed in a blur of new beginnings. The relationship I had with my daughter wasn't perfect, and I knew it wouldn't be for a long time, but each day we spent together was a step forward. We still had a long way to go, but we were finally communicating. For the first time in years, we were both trying to understand each other, and that alone felt like a victory. The work in the hospital continued, and it was demanding, always demanding, but it gave me purpose. Each patient I treated, every life I touched, helped to remind me that I had something meaningful in my life, a life that was mine, built with my own hands, with my own strength. I no longer felt like I was living in the shadow of anyone else. I was living for myself, and that was something I had almost forgotten how to do. My daughter, after staying with me for a while, had decided to go back home to finish school. We both knew it was too soon for her to leave, but she had made it clear that she needed to return to her life, to find her own way too. I didn't stop her. I knew I couldn't hold on to her forever. I had let her go once. I wasn't going to do it again. We stayed in touch, long-distance calls, messages, and letters. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And that, for now, was enough. As the months went by, I found myself slipping into a routine. The days blurred together: hospital work, personal growth, small steps with my daughter. The past no longer haunted me like it used to. I had found peace in the life I was building. And then, one day, I received a call. It was from Mr. Howard. Olivia, I need to talk to you about something, he said. His tone was grave, and it immediately set my heart racing. What is it? I asked, my mind already racing to the worst-case scenario. It's about Ethan, Mr. Howard said, his voice tight with caution. He's been through a lot, and now he's asking about you again. I felt a strange mixture of emotions. Part of me wanted to feel anger, the kind of anger I had carried for so long. But the other part of me, the part that had worked so hard to move on, felt nothing but a hollow emptiness. I had let go of him a long time ago. He wants to know if you're okay, Mr. Howard continued, almost as though he were treading carefully. He says he's been trying to reach out, but you've blocked him everywhere. Why now? I said, the words feeling thick in my throat. Why after everything? He's changed, Olivia. I can tell, Mr. Howard said softly. He's gone through hell, and I think he's finally starting to understand what he lost. He's been asking about you, about your life. He wants to know what you're doing now. I thought you should know. I sat there in silence, my mind racing. Part of me wanted to lash out, to yell at him for everything he had done, for what he had taken from me. But another part of me, the part that had spent years trying to heal, simply didn't care. Ethan made his choices, I said slowly, trying to keep my voice steady. And I made mine. I'm not the same person anymore. I've moved on. There was a long pause on the other end of the line, and I could hear Mr. Howard sigh. I understand, he said, his voice softening. I just thought you should know that he's asking. You can decide what to do with that information. I ended the call quietly, my thoughts still spinning. Ethan, after everything, he still cared, but I couldn't help but wonder. Did I still care? I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if there was anything left for me to care about. What he had done, to me, to our family, still stung deep in my chest. But at the same time, I couldn't deny that a part of me, the part that had loved him so deeply once, was still there. It hadn't disappeared completely, but that wasn't my life anymore. I wasn't the same woman who had stood by him for years, sacrificing everything, swallowing all the hurt. I had built something better for myself. I had found peace, and I couldn't allow the past to creep back in, to drag me down into that old pain. For a while, I thought about it, Ethan, his apology, his regret. I thought about what he might be going through now, but in the end, I realized something. I didn't need him to validate my journey anymore. I had learned to validate myself. That realization gave me a strange sense of closure. The last vestiges of my old feelings for him slipped away quietly. What we had was gone. The man I had once loved didn't exist anymore, and I didn't need him to be happy. I focused back on my life, my work, my future, the possibility of a new chapter with my daughter. Things were still uncertain, and the road ahead would be filled with challenges, but I was no longer afraid. I had been through the worst, and I had survived. And more importantly, I had found myself. I was stronger, wiser, and more capable than I had ever been. I didn't need anyone's approval to move forward. I was enough. The days moved steadily forward, and with each passing one, I felt a sense of completion growing within me. I had come so far from the broken, lost woman I once was, standing in the shadow of betrayal and neglect, to the woman I had become, strong, independent, and confident in who I was. I had found my purpose, not in Ethan or his family, but in myself, in my work, in the people I helped, and in the relationship I was rebuilding with my daughter. There were still moments of doubt, of course. There were nights when I lay awake, wondering if I had made the right decisions, questioning the paths I had chosen. But each time, I came back to the truth I had learned the hard way. I was worthy of more than I had settled for before. I had found peace in this new life. I was living it for myself, not for anyone else. And that was something I could finally be proud of. But then, one day, an unexpected phone call came, one I didn't anticipate. It was from my daughter. "Mom," her voice crackled over the line, her tone uncertain. "I need to talk to you." I sat up, my heart skipping a beat. "Of course, sweetheart. What's going on?" "I'm coming to visit you," she said, the words rushed but full of hope. "I've been thinking a lot about everything, and I think I'm ready to see you again." The emotions that flooded me were overwhelming. I had worked so hard to heal, to rebuild that bond, and now she was offering me the chance to truly reconnect. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "I'm so glad to hear that," I said, my voice filled with emotion. "You don't have to rush anything. Whenever you're ready, I'll be here." It didn't matter how long it took. What mattered was that she was reaching out, that she was ready to try again. Days later, I stood at the airport, my heart racing. I hadn't seen her in years. The little girl I once knew, the one who had looked up at me with innocent eyes, was now a young woman, her own person, with her own experiences. I couldn't even begin to imagine the emotional weight of the past few years on her shoulders. When she stepped through the terminal doors, our eyes met, and for a moment, everything else faded away. The distance, the hurt, the years we had spent apart, all of it seemed to vanish in that instant. She was different, of course. She was older, more confident, but there was something familiar in the way she looked at me. And when she walked toward me, slowly, cautiously, I knew that this moment was as important to her as it was to me. "Mom," she said softly, standing in front of me, her eyes filled with vulnerability and hope. "I missed you." Tears filled my eyes as I reached for her. It wasn't a perfect moment, and it didn't erase the pain of the years we'd lost. But in that moment, I didn't need anything else. We had each other. We had the chance to rebuild, and that was all I could ask for. "I missed you too, sweetheart," I whispered, pulling her into a warm embrace. "I'm so sorry for everything I couldn't give you." She pulled back slightly, looking up at me with a soft smile. "We'll figure it out, Mom. I know we will." It wasn't the end of our journey, it was just the beginning of something new, something stronger than anything I had ever imagined. It wouldn't be easy, of course. We both had so much to work through, so much to rebuild. But for the first time in years, I felt like we had the chance to do it right. And that was enough. As the days passed, we spent time together, catching up, talking about everything that had happened. There were moments of silence, of awkwardness, but there were also moments of laughter, of shared memories, of the bond that had never truly broken. Despite everything that had come between us, my daughter was different, but so was I. We had both changed, both grown, and now we had the chance to be there for each other, to support each other, to build a new life together. Ethan and Grace were still in the background of my life, their consequences unfolding, but I no longer needed to focus on them. They no longer held the power to define my happiness. They no longer had the power to hold me back. I had learned that lesson the hard way. I was free, and so was my daughter. We were free to create our own path, free to live our own lives, free To heal.as, I looked at my daughter, standing beside me. I realized that this was the most important thing I had ever done. I had fought for this moment, this connection, this future. And it was worth every sacrifice, every painful step, because now we had each other. And together, we would build something beautiful.